In today's video, I want to introduce you to the concept of conditional code chunks. Now, code chunks are used in Quarto and Markdown documents, but conditional code chunks are only evaluated if they meet a specific condition. Now, this only works when you're knitting the document or rendering the document, depending if you're using Markdown or Quarto. But what this gives you is the power to write an entire code chunk that will only be run if it matches a specific condition. And you can do that using parameters or another object. And then you don't have to rewrite your code chunks or your templates if that's what you're using. This is a great way for appraisers using multiple MLS systems to set up a conditional code chunk that only runs if it's matching a specific MLS. For instance, if you're doing your import, you can set up one code chunk for one MLS, another code chunk for another MLS, and it will run the appropriate code chunk depending on which MLS you've entered into your parameters. So before we get into that video, I'm going to ask you to take a minute to hit that subscribe button, and if at the end of the video what you've heard here is helpful, go ahead and hit that like button. Now let's go ahead and get into some conditional code chunks, and I've set up some very simple samples for you today so that you can just grasp the idea and maybe start applying it to some complicated code. Let's go ahead and get into it. So what we've got here is a Quarto document. Now these code chunks will work in Markdown as well. You'd pretty much write them just the exact same way. And what we want to do is set up conditions so that these chunks will run only if they match a specified condition. And we're going to do that in two different ways. The first way, we're going to use params from the YAML header. We've got 3 set up, so we'll test all 3, and we'll test some conditions that don't match as well. And then we're going to test for a couple conditions, and then we're also going to make a condition that is saved as an object and then used in the condition code. You can see in this first chunk, we've named it no condition, so this chunk should run no matter what. It'll give us the result of 2 plus 2. In this next chunk, we have one condition, and we're trying to match cond1 in the params, so it's going to evaluate equals, instead of just putting true or false here, we're going to put our condition, params $cond1 equaled y. And I've got y in the YAML header, so that chunk should run. In this next chunk, we're looking at params $cond2. It should equal yes, and it should run. Well, we're going to see that it doesn't work. If we use yes as a parameter entry, it won't run. I'm not sure why it won't run. I think it's working as a true or false condition in that param, but this chunk will not run even though it looks like it matches the condition. Now this next chunk, we're just looking at cond3 where it equals run. That chunk should run. We should get a result 7. The next chunk, we're going to look for 2 different conditions. In this case, we're looking at conditions 1 and 3. So params $cond1 equals y and params $cond3 equals run. Both of those are y and run in the YAML header, so that chunk should run. In the next chunk, we're setting one of those to something different so that it doesn't match the param. The first condition we're looking at, eval equals params $condition1 equals y and params $cond3 equals stop, which it doesn't in the YAML header, so this chunk should not run. In the next chunk, we are building an object as one of our conditions, and we're just assigning the number 5 to the object condition 4. And then we're going to use condition 4 as a condition in this eval statement. So eval equals condition 4 equals 5. And we don't need quotes here because it is a numeric value and not a character value. Now, you'll notice if I click run on all of these chunks, it will run the chunks. It does not run this chunk header, so it doesn't run the eval statement. So we can run these, we'll get 4. Of course, there's no conditions there. If we run this, we'll get 5, even though that matches. We know this one doesn't match. We'll try running it. We're still going to get a result of 9. I'm just going to clear those outputs, and you'll see those params are not found. Even if we run the params and they're saved in the environment, it's still not going to find it, and it's still going to run the chunk. So let's go ahead and render this document, and we'll see our results. Okay, we can see the first chunk ran 2 plus 2 equals 4. That one should run no matter what. Our next chunk, 2 plus 3, is 5. That chunk ran. It matched the condition. Now this one, the 3 plus 3, it matched the condition, but we did not get a result. So it did not run that chunk, even though it matches. So something about the word yes in a params, it will not run. Our next one, 3 plus 4 equals 7. That's correct. This next chunk is looking for the 2 conditions, con1 to equal y and con3 to equal run. And that worked. We get our result 8. The next one, we changed it to see if it matched the word stop, and it didn't work. So all we got was the code 4 plus 5 with no result. Here we just stored the value 5 in condition 4, and we used it as our evaluation conditional statement, and we got a result 10. So this is a great way to write extra code, but you only want to run it if it matches a certain condition. So without having to take that code chunk out of say a template document, you can write conditional statements and then use params or another object to create a condition statement to see whether that chunk should run or not. As a real estate appraiser, I use that when I am looking to work with one MLS versus another MLS. I put the name of that MLS in, I test it as a condition. If it's not in that one, it doesn't run that chunk and goes to the next chunk, and we'll run that one instead. So this is a great way to level up your code writing and your Quarto and Markdown documents. Give it a try, test it out, play around with it. If you have any questions or ideas on using code chunks like this, put them in the comments below, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.